Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. Today we have the new featured location, the Throne Room. And in the Throne Room, cards here with the highest power have their power doubled. Now, since that is something that is not done every single turn, it is something that is kind of like Monster Metropolis in that it is a kind of flat increase to that power. It is not continually doubled. So if you have a 5 power card and it's doubled to 10, but then your opponent puts a 6 power card there, then all of a sudden they get the double powered card and you end up losing it. And so keeping that in mind, you can get some pretty big cards, and if you can sneak out something with a pretty decent power level, then all of a sudden you can swing the lane very, very drastically. And so today I'm going to be covering my top 5 deck recommendations to try out in this hot location from Series 1, 2, and 3. Now, I know that Series 4 and 5 just came out, but those are so new to the game that I'm not really going to build around them because they're not going to be accessible to the majority of players. And so if you have something like Shuri, then yes, definitely play that. That's going to help you win this lane. But otherwise, these will give you some kind of base ideas to build off of. Now, the first deck that I have is a Devil Dino build. Now, inherently, Devil Dino is going to be one of the strongest cards in pool 1 that you can drop on the board. You can sometimes beat this with a Gamora followed by an Odin, but it's much easier to just drop one singular Devil Dino. You can pretty easily swing games, especially if you can drop 2 Devil Dinos onto the board, as well as pushing tempo with some of your other low-cost cards. But this run runs fairly simply. I do have a video covering this deck list down below. It was before the patch, but not a lot has changed. And so I will leave a link to that in the description below if you want to see a couple of example games with this list. Now, the second list that I have is another Devil Dino build. Devil Dino is just going to be one of the most versatile decks that you can build. It's a very solid deck list overall. And if you get the upside of having it in the Throne Room, then you can elevate your power potential or your last turn push very, very drastically. Now, with this list, we have a couple of kind of counterplays. We do have Shang-Chi, so if you end up playing your Devil Dino into one of the other side lanes, one of the other lanes that is not Throne Room, you can drop your Shang-Chi, end up destroying your opponent's card, and then that could very likely swing that location in your favor by giving you the double powered card rather than your opponent. And then the rest of the deck is designed to kind of make sure that we have a full hand size at all times. So we have our Agent 13, we have Sentinel, we have Collector that will get buffed up for each card that you generate outside of your deck. We have Cable to pull the opponent's cards, and then we have Moon Girl. Moon Girl is going to be a really good target for Devil Dino, and then we also have White Queen. Depending on what the setup looks like, we can either use White Queen to get some additional information to help keep our hand size full, maybe even sometimes we get a resource that we can use from it. But this gives us a pretty good power push and counterplay if we don't get the best push into the Throne Room. I feel like as soon as you get Shang-Chi though, you're going to need to have him in just about every list that you run today. And then next up we have an Electro ramp deck. Now, Electro ramp decks are just pretty strong in general because you get an early curve on your opponent. And if you can end up getting an early Professor X lockdown and the opponent doesn't have a card there, then you can start swinging that. And if you can lock it down, you can generate some additional upside for yourself. Maybe you even lock down one of the side lanes and you end up throwing a destroyer into that lane, followed by maybe a leader play on the final turn. But with Electro, you can start ramping into your higher power cards earlier. That way you can start edging out over your opponent and drop those higher power resources before they can. And then the next list that I recommend is a zero list. You're going to be able to start putting some high power cards into the lane early, and then you can kind of condense and combine those cards with your Venom into a high power Taskmaster. If you have a really strong Venom that you consolidate all of the high power cards that you played into the Throne Room, that is going to double that power. You can then play your Taskmaster, which will retain that double power bonus. And so then you can get some extra upside from it that your opponent's not going to have access to. So this list is kind of a hybrid zero list. If you want, there are a few Sarah versions that will allow you to do some bigger last turn plays. I like the idea of having a Taskmaster for today's location because you're just going to be able to get so much upside if you do have the highest power card there. And then you can always potentially consolidate with Venom. On 5, you could drop a Taskmaster somewhere else, or you can drop a Cosmo, or you can drop a Venom into a Cosmo to make sure that your Venom can't be Shang-Chi'd. You have a couple of different options, a couple of really strong turn 6 plays, depending on what you draw into and what you have. And Zero is going to give you a lot of flexibility in making sure you can use your high power cards consistently. And then I don't think there's any really big surprise in my last one. It is the KM Best Dino Control deck that I ran a few days ago. This list is inherently already very strong by itself, and it also uses your Devil Dino. You can also potentially lock down a lane with Professor X. You have Daredevil to get the insight into if you're going to have that upside on your opponent or not. And so you can use this list to either decide if you want to compete for the throne room or if you just want to play into one of the other lanes and compete for those other two instead. You have a lot of flexibility in this list, and I think this is going to serve very, very well today. But those are my top 5 deck recommendations to try out for today's location. There could be some other ones that I didn't think of that just come out of nowhere and just perform insanely well. If you run into any of those, let me know what they are in the comment section down below. I'm always interested to see how you guys take these, how you adapt them, and how well they do for you. And so I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.